Okay, so I said in the shiur description, this is kind of an experimental shiur. Okay, it's something that Isaiah and I actually started working on last year and did not get anywhere with. And I tried working on it this year with like 3 people and didn't get anywhere with. I won't say I didn't get anywhere with. So worst case scenario, we're gonna walk away with a lot of interesting facts and fun stuff to think about. And better case scenario, I don't have any new ideas, okay? But maybe some of my old ideas are new to other people. So we'll get some, insights that might be new to some people. And then best case scenario, we'll figure out stuff and answer our questions, okay? So the title of the year is Insights from Esther's Tefilos, okay? And so the immediate question is, where does she daven in the Megillah, okay? So before we even do that, if I asked you, okay, what the connection is between Purim and Tefilah, what would you say?
Well, the Jews did the tzom,
Okay, so Moshe's saying the Jews did the tzom, they did the fasting, and what do you say about Tefilah? And Tefilah. Right. Okay. Right. Oh, that's a good point. Right. It does mention Zaka crying out at the end, so it definitely seems to be that the Jews engaged in Tefilah there. Okay. Yeah. Tamar, what are you gonna say?
I was gonna say something similar. I thought there was something like that with Mordechai, but maybe not.
Let's see.
With Zaka, I was remembering that word, I think.
Right. Yeah. I'm also. You just went through the Megillah. So does it say Mordechai?
No, it just says that the Jews did it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oren?
Without looking particularly on the board, I don't know. I would just assume that probably Esther davened before going.
Right, it's a good assumption, right? I mean, what is she not going to daven? Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Zakal Gadol Mora, right? Is that where is that?
That's when Mordechai goes at right after here's the decree in the beginning of the 4th part.
Yeah. Okay. I just want to see it with my own eyes. 4th parak. Right.
Interesting.
Yeah. Okay. Right. That's a good point. Yeah. So the answer so these are all good answers. The answer I wanted to give, just because it's one that is not on people's radar until it is because it's in a hidden Rambam. Okay. So in the beginning of the Mishnah Torah, he has the Hakdama, right? And he has the overall introduction. Then he goes through mitzvos aseh and mitzvos lo aseh. And then at the very end, he has a few paragraphs, 6 paragraphs? No, 4 paragraphs on Derabanans. Okay. And he says, basically, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but he says that all of the mitzvos Derabanan have to have some sort of root or they're augmentations or amplifications of a Doraisa. Okay. And the one example he gives, he says, Aval im hosifu beistin. No, sorry, that's not what I want to read. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So if beistin, I'll read from here. Aval im hosifu beistin im navi sheyeh be'oso azman mitzvah derech takana or derech hara or derech kazera. So if a beistin with a navi who's in those days, interesting he mentions that, adds a mitzvah by way of an enactment or an proclamation, instruction, or a decree, Einzo Tosefus. This is not adding to the Torah in a way that would violate Baal Tosif, adding to the Torah. Because we don't say that God commanded us to make an eruv or to read Megillah in its time. Vilu Amru, Cain, if we said this, Hayu Mosifim al Torah, then we would be adding to the Torah. Okay, don't ask about Asher Kiddushan of Mitzvah Vitzivana on the Tilas Yudayim. Ram answers that later on. Okay. Ella, so here's what we want to get to. Ella kach anu omrim. Rather, this is what we say. Shah neviim im beistin. We say that the neviim with beistin tiknu v'tzivu. They enacted and commanded likros hamegillah ba'onasa, to read the Megillah in its time. K'dei lahaskir shvachav shel Kadosh Baruch Hu u'teshuos she'asalanu, in order to recall the praises of God and the salvations that He wrought for us. V'haya karov l'shaveinu, and He was close to our outcry. Okay, and we do this k'dei levarcho ulahalalo, in order to bless Him and praise Him, uk'dei lahodia ladoros habayim, and to inform future generations she'emes ma shivtichanu b'Torah, that it is true what is said in the Torah. And here's the pasuk in Dvarim 4:7. Ki mi goy gadol asher lo elukim krovim elav kadashem elukim b'chol kareinu elav. Who is a great nation that has a God who is close to it, like Hashem our God, whenever we call to Him. This is the same pattern that all the mitzvos midivri sofrim follow. Bein aseh, bein lo aseh. So he says, as his example, the purpose of Megillah is to praise God and recall His salvations. And the fact that He was close when we called out to Him, and the pasuk he grounds it in is, who is a nation that has a God who's close to it whenever we call out to Him. So he really says, we talk about Pirsum Hanes as publicizing the miracle as the main theme of Purim. According to the Rambam, I mean, from this, it sounds more like Shomea Tefilah, or Kirvas Hamakom, like God being close to us, is the main theme. Okay, and close to us specifically when we call out to him. Yeah, Isaiah?
Then we're learning about Megillah and not the other Duraban.
Yeah.
Is he saying that's the reason for all Durabans?
No, just for Megillah. Yeah. Okay, so that's just a background thing. We're not going to analyze this, but just have this in mind because everything's going to fall into this. Okay, so obviously I'm assuming everyone is somewhat familiar with the Megillah. So I just clipped it to the psukim that we need to read. Okay, so this is in chapter 4. Mordechai is communicating to Esther via Hasach, okay, about the decree. He informs her about the decree, and he says that you should do something about it, right? So then she says, I'm just going to read this in English because I don't want to bog us down here. Esther said to Hasach and commanded him to say to Mordechai, all the king's servants and the people of the king's provinces know that every man or woman who comes to the king, to the inner courtyard, who is not called, there is but one law for him, to be killed. Only he to whom the king extends his golden scepter will live. And I have not been called to come to the king these 30 days. Okay, so that seems like a good argument. She has precedent that Vashti got killed for disobeying the king. So she's really going to risk it. And remember, how long between this day and the decree being enacted is there?
Like a while.
Yeah, how much a while? Almost a full year, right? 11 months. Because this is the letters were sent out on the 13th of Nisan. And this is either on the 13th or on the 14th. Presumably it's on the 13th. So and the decree is for the 13th of Adar. So it like if I again, this is a whole sugya here, but like I would say like, okay, don't rush into things. It'd be the equivalent of something happens to the Jews, storm the Oval Office and tell the president right now, like, whoa, like just calm down. Let's like think about this. Okay. So they told Mordechai Esther's words, and then Mordechai really lets her have it. Okay. Mordechai said to the reply to Esther, do not imagine to yourself that you shall escape in the king's house more than all the Judeans. For if you will indeed remain silent at this time, relief and salvation will arise for the Judeans from another place, but you and your father's house will perish. Who knows if for a time such as this, you attained royalty? Oh, yeah. Yes, my favorite pasuk also, right? And I've said this many times that Rabbi Moskowitz said that this is the proof that like you should not say for sure that something is hashgacha pratis for sure unless you're a navi. And Mordechai says, who knows? Yeah, Isaiah.
The only direct mention in the Megillah to hashgacha pratis or indirect.
Good question. Good question. Yeah, I don't know. I guess it depends on how much you say direct or indirect. Yeah.
Sorry, you're saying
yeah.
The fact that Mordechai was such a righteous man, and he was questioning whether it was a shot.
Yeah, meaning he didn't say God put you in this place for this time. He said, who knows? Right? Maybe. Right? Meaning he clearly believed that this was the case, but he wasn't firm about it. Because we don't know for sure unless lo our thoughts are not God's thoughts, and our ways are not His ways. Yeah. Side note here, one of my favorite Purim shiurim, to which was added Rav Pesach shiur from this Sunday. Okay, I think that was not that it needs my praise, but like I was just blown away by that analysis. One of my favorite shiurim is Rebbe's 2005 shiur, debate between Mordechai and Esther. I'll try to remember to post this in my chats. It's only an hour long. I never remember why I like it, other than the fact that he analyzes this dialogue, and I just remember the ideas being really good, and I listen to it every couple of years. Really good shiur. So I plan to listen to that tomorrow. Okay, anyway, so what happens? So that'll explain the dialogue if you want more analysis of that. Mordechai passed. Okay, that's a weird thing. Oh, so sorry. Esther said to reply to Mordechai. All right, so this is when she jumps into action. Go and assemble all the Judeans who are present in Shushan and fast for me. Do not eat and do not drink for 3 days, night and day. And I and my maidens too will fast so. And thus I will go to the king against the law. And if I perish, I perish. Mordechai passed, whatever that means, and he did all that Esther commanded him. Okay, then the first pasuk of the fifth parak, which is what we're going to focus on. Vayhi bayom hashlishi, and it was on the third day. Plain Pshat is the third day of the fasting. Vatilbash Esther malchus. Esther donned royalty. Vatamud b'chatzar beis hamelach hapnimis nochach beis hamelach, and she stood in the inner courtyard of the king's house, facing the king's house, facing the king's house. And the king was sitting on his royal throne in the royal house, facing the entrance of the house. Another sidebar, those who know my friend Yoel Schapper, he made a video last year where he basically just went on Google Earth and looked at Ahasuerus's palace and just pointed out all the different places that you can see, because they know, I guess, where it is, and you can see that from the king's palace there's an open chamber through courtyards where he could see Esther he'd be able to see Esther standing there. It's a 2-minute video. It's worth watching because it's cool. Yeah. Yeah, I'll try and remember to share that also. Yeah. If I don't, feel free to remind me. Okay. So what we're gonna do is I found there are so we said you said presumably she davened. Okay, right? So I found 3 sources that actually try to like spell out what her tefillah was. Now, obviously, this is speculative. It's not speculative. It's midrash. It's essentially midrash. Okay. In other words, no one was there, right? No one knows. She didn't write down her tefillah. Okay. So I would approach this methodologically differently than, let's say, we're analyzing the siddur, where we know that the origin of the brachos of all brachos was from Ezra and Esbasian, even though we don't know exactly like what was part of the core nusach. That's like they set up a tefillah for public usage, okay? Or let's say you're analyzing tefillah in Tanakh, right, or Tehillim, right? There you know the author wrote it, and it is exactly these words. Here you have whoever the author of these midrashim is basically putting himself in Esther's shoes and saying like, what would I have davened if I were in Esther's place? Okay, so the 3 tefillos are, one is in the Targum Rishon to Esther 5:1. Okay, I'll explain what that means in a second. Second is in the Targum 5:1, the Targum Sheni, and the third one is in Midrash Rabbah. Now, what is a Targum? A Targum is an Aramaic translation of Torah. Okay, we are accustomed to Targum Onkelos. Okay, who knows whether this was Hashgacha? No, I'm just kidding. It wasn't. The Targum, the style of Targum that I think we're most used to is Targum Onkelos, who basically is a minimalist Targum who sticks as close to the Hebrew as possible, unless there is an anthropomorphic description or an ambiguity that he's forced to resolve, or in some cases a halachic or grammatical like point that he has to make. Okay, but then there's a different genre of Targum. For example, like the Targum Yerushalmi or Targum Yonasan ben Uziel in certain places, where it's a translation, but it's like it's weaving in midrashim. Okay, so the 2 Targumim on Esther are both of that genre. So it's a translation, but it's including lots of midrashic material. Okay, the Targum Rishon is shorter, and by short I mean long, and the Targum Sheni is super duper long. Okay, so for example, just to give you a sense of this, in Esther 1, okay, so the pasuk is just Vayhi b'mei Achashverosh, hu Achashverosh hamelech mehodu akosh sheva esrim umayam v'nina. This is the Targum, the first Targum on the left side, on the first pasuk, okay? And this is the second Targum, 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 okay? So it is like, basically it's a collection of midrashim, okay? And then Esther Rabbah is more of a formalized collection of midrashim, okay? So, yes.
The Targum, they would also read the, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but they would read those, at least I know with the Torah.
With the Torah.
Like after the Aliyah.
Right. So in the Torah, they would read the Targum along with the Torah itself. Right. I don't think they did that for Esther. Yeah, I don't think that they did. Certainly not these Targumim. If they had some other Targum previously, then maybe. Yeah. So there are 3 tefillos. I think we're only going to get through the first one tonight. I will tell you, the second Targum is wild. And my chavrusa and I, as we were reading it, I'm going to say this just so it's on record, and I don't mean to disparage the Targum. It seems fishy. Okay, there are phrases in it that do not seem like they are written by like a chacham. It seems like stuff was added. Like, for example, it uses a phrase, I've never heard this. It's like, the world that you created, God, with your hands. Like, we don't say that. Like it's weird. It also just looks like random stuff. So if anyone can figure out the Targum Sheni on this, mad props. Okay, we're going to focus on the Targum Rishon, and if we have time, which we're not going to, then we'll do the Midrash Rabbah. Okay, so what I have here is, I'm going to actually skip the raw log. I prepare too much material here. Okay, all right. So what I have here is the Targum Rishon in, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. Targum Rishon in Aramaic, and then the translation from that into Hebrew, and then my translation into English. Okay, I did it using both the Hebrew and the English. Okay, the Targum Hebrew, the Targum Ivri. I think I just got from the Torah Chaim edition. I don't know who did it. Yeah,
like recent.
I don't know. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and read it in. I'm just gonna read it in English. Okay. If you have questions about my English, then you can go ahead and call me out on it, and I'll point out where I got this from. and it happened on the third day of Pesach. Okay, let's pause here for 1 second. Okay, so already that's a midrashic interpolation. Now it's not midrash that happened on Pesach, but to translate the pasuk this way is a translation because plain shot is the third day of her fast. Okay, now sidebar, there is a machlokus about when these fasts occurred. Okay, I went into a whole rabbit hole on those sugyas yesterday. So there's a machlokus between Rashi and the Midrash Rabbah about whether, so everyone holds that the letters were dispatched by Haman on the 13th of Nisan. Okay, Rashi holds that the fasting was on the 14th, 15th, and 16th of Nisan, and the Midrash holds it was on the 13th, 14th, and 15th. Okay, so either way, I don't know if this is saying on the third day of Pesach. That does not make sense to me. B'yoma Tlisa de Pischa, it would make more sense to say on the third day, which was Pesach. Okay, but fine. Esther dressed in royal garments, and the Holy Spirit rested upon her. Okay, so I don't know if this is significant. We still haven't figured this out for Tehillim, whether like if you got Ruach HaKodesh and you say Tefilah, whether that like leads to anything differently, but it's saying that this is Ruach HaKodesh. Okay. She arose and prayed in the inner corridor of the king's palace. Now here's a phrase that I did not know how to translate. V'tlias v'daras deves malka gava'a demizbnei lekabel beis malka di Yerushalayim. Okay, so the Hebrew translates it as "V'takam v'tispal b'chatzer beis hamelech hapnimis habnuye keneged beis hamelech asher b'Yerushalayim." So keneged can either mean facing or corresponding to. Okay, I think this means she arose and prayed in the inner courtyard of the king's palace, which was built corresponding to the king's house in Jerusalem, meaning the Beis Hamikdash. Okay, that's what I think it is. I don't know why that's important, but I think it would just be weird to say that in Shushan it was facing the Beis Hamikdash, unless it's trying to say that she was davening facing the Beis Hamikdash, and that's just a normal Tefilah halacha. I'm not sure. Yeah.
Could it mean he modeled his vows after the davening?
Could be that also. That'd be even stranger, but yeah.
Why
Okay.
saying Beit HaMikdash and not just the king's palace?
Because it's the king's palace, which was built, oh, you mean whichever king was there, Nebuchadnezzar or whoever? Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the status was of it could be. Yeah, that could be. Okay. Either way, I don't think this is the key point, but clearly the Targum felt that it was important. Okay. And the king was sitting in his royal throne in the palace, facing the entrance of the house. Then Esther opened her mouth and said, okay, so here's the Tefilah. Okay. Master of the universe, do not deliver me into the hand of this uncircumcised one, and do not fulfill the wicked Haman's desire upon me, just as was done to Vashti. Okay, now hold on a second. It's going to tell a story, okay, which if anyone can find this story in any other source, please tell me, because it is an sort of an outlandish story, okay? And I'll tell you what Ken calls this later on, okay? So do not fulfill the wicked Haman's desire upon me, just as was done to Vashti. Haman, who gave counsel to the king and ordered her execution, because he sought to marry his daughter to him. And when the maidens were gathered into the custody of Haggai, among them was Haman's daughter, and it was the will of heaven that each and every day she would become soiled with excrement and urine, and her orifices would emit a terrible stench. So they removed her in haste. Okay, so Ken refers to this as the miracle of the incontinence. Okay, so I've just never seen this. I've seen in Midrashim that Haman suggested that Vashti be killed so that he can marry his daughter off to Achashverosh, which seems like a very Haman thing to do. Okay, but not that in the 12 months that the women were with Haggai in the Beis HaNashim, then every time they went to check on Haman's daughter, then she had soiled herself, and she was so stinky that they had to remove her from the contest or whatever.
What are the pronouns in the he sought to marry his daughter to him?
Haman sought to marry Haman's daughter to Achashverosh. Yeah.
Okay.
Which makes sense. And again, this is obviously also presuming that the Memuchan in the first parak is Haman. Okay. By the way, we had a side discussion this week in the student chat about ChatGPT, right? Okay. So I'm very fond of using ChatGPT to translate, but then you always got to check it. So when it translated it, it said every day she would become soiled with excrement and urine, and then the thing ufuma havasri lachada, and her mouth was very putrid. Okay, and so I said it's not mouth. I think this is clearly a euphemism for her bodily cavities, which I know Chazal do use that for mouth in certain cases, And it was like, oh, thanks for telling me. That makes more sense, So you always got to check, okay, and use your mind. All right, okay, fine. So that's the first part of Esther's Tefilah. Okay, don't let me be delivered into the hand of the uncircumcised one, who is Achashverosh. Okay, and do not fulfill Haman's desire upon me. And then she throws in this whole Vashti thing, just as it was done to Vashti when Haman tried to marry his daughter off to Achashverosh, and then it was hold on just a second here. Yeah, right. And then this whole thing happened and she got removed. Okay, fine. Now, okay, that's why I thought something was missing. Okay. And from you, God, this matter has come upon me that I should be given to him in marriage. Now, grant me mercy in his eyes, in Achashverosh's eyes, that he should not kill me, and that he should fulfill my request and petition which I ask of him. Okay. Then she says something which I will not try to do in a Neshima Achas. And you in your abundant mercies have mercy upon your people, and do not deliver the children of Yaakov into the hands of Haman, bar Hamdasa, bar Ada, bar Biznai, bar Aflitus, bar Diosos, bar Pros, bar Hamdan, bar Talion, bar Ansisomus, bar Harum, bar Harsum, bar Shagar, bar Nagar, bar Parmashta, bar Vaizasa, bar Agag, bar Sumkar, bar Malik, bar Alifas, bar Esav, Rashia. Okay, that guy. Okay, don't deliver the children of Yaakov into the hands of Haman, genealogy, back to Amalek, son of Eliphaz, son of Esav. Yeah, okay. Side question, which you're probably all wondering.
Amalek that's just a fact I didn't know.
That's a fact that you didn't know.
Okay.
Yeah. Amalek, in Sefer Bereshis, Amalek is the son of Eliphaz, the son of Esav. Okay. No. Okay, so sorry, I shouldn't say no. Okay, there are two other sources. This is mentioned in the Targum Sheni somewhere else. I think I think it's in Esther 3:1, and then in Masechah Sofrim. Okay, but nowhere else is this mentioned. Okay, so you're probably wondering like what's up with this genealogy in terms of just like its accuracy or whatever, you know. So what I mean, what's your intuition here about like what to do with this? Not why it's in the Targum, but like what to make of this genealogy, like, you know, where to come from, like, you know.
What do you mean?
Maybe they knew that.
Why is it there?
No, not why is it here, but like, yeah, where do they get it from? Yeah.
Well, I guess they were keeping track of Amalek since the time that Amalek happened.
Okay, yeah. So to me, you know, I think a person could try to say like, oh, this is like part of the Midrash, like you have to decode it and whatever. Like, no, it seems like this is a real genealogy, you know, that they kept. And by the way, I think it's very clear that that from Agag and back is not just 5 generations. That does not make any sense. Okay, because Agag was in the time of Shaul. And you're not gonna and you're not gonna say and Amalek you know was the grandson of Esav, you know. But if you calculate, ask ChatGPT about whether from Haman to Agag, that's 18 generations, and if you do the math, it turns out that you got basically every 30 years. So that does work out. Okay, so my assumption here is that this is some sort of Masorah or records that they have from Haman going back to Agag, and then from Agag, Sumkar, Amalek, Eliphaz, Esav, that is skipping a lot of generations. Yeah, okay. Or Sumkar might be a metaphor of some sort. I mean, I don't know. But yeah, Esti?
Sorry, can you say again what it is that if you work it out, it's every 30 years?
Meaning if you, let's say Haman was around the year, like around the late or early 5th century, I don't know how you say it, like whatever, 500, give or take, okay? And Shaul was in around like 1000-ish, maybe. Okay, again, I don't know the exact dates. And then you go, ChatGPT said 520 years for some reason. So 520 divided by 18 generations, you end up with 28.8 years per generation. So that's totally reasonable that these could be actual like links in a chain.
That this would be, I'm sorry, I'm still not following. That
From
this would be
Haman
Agag.
going to Agag is a
To
real
Agag.
genealogy.
Okay, right. Okay,
But from
got it.
Agag to Esav is definitely not a real genealogy. Because
That's not enough people.
that's not enough people. And they'd have to live way too long.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah. Okay. So that's our Tefilah, everyone. Okay. So let's just outline this just so we can visualize it here. Okay. So outline, oops, sorry. Outline, still not working. Outline of Esther's Tefilah. Okay. So you've got do not deliver me into the hands of the uncircumcised one, circumcised one, okay, or let Haman, what did she say? Let Haman fulfill, or do not fulfill Haman's wicked desire on me, okay, or fulfill Haman's wicked desire on me, Okay, then she has the sidebar. Hold on a second. And she introduces the Vashti thing with just as was done to Vashti. Okay, just as was done to Vashti. Okay, then she says, from you this this matter has come upon me. This matter has come upon me. And to marry Achashverosh, okay. Let me find favor in his eyes. Yeah, grant me mercy in his eyes, and let him fulfill my requests. Oh, that he should not kill me, right? That he should not kill me, and that he should grant my request. Okay, and then the third part of the Tefilah is, have mercy on your people, and do not deliver the children of Yaakov into the hands of Haman, arrow, Amalek, arrow, Esav. Okay, so that's the short version, so we could just have it at a glance there. Okay, all right. So what are the questions and problems here? Yeah.
Two. So first, obvious one, like, why do we need the hyper specificity
Yeah.
for Haman?
Why the hyper specific genealogy? Genealogy is that how you spell it? Yeah, genealogy of Haman going back that far.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
And the other one, why include the bit about Haman's daughter?
Yes, that's
It's
the
like totally irrelevant.
big mystery to me, right? Why include the bit about Haman's daughter? And again, you just look up the amount of real estate in the Tefilah that this takes up. It's like a lot of words, yeah. Okay, Ayala?
Why did she start with a very personal request, especially considering the fact that I don't think was included in the decree, really?
Okay. Well, that's an interesting thing, right? So it depends on who you believe, right? So if you believe Mordechai, then she will be killed as part of the decree, right? So, but yeah, at this point, it does not seem, I mean, it seems like she did believe Mordechai. So I'll still include the question of like, why start with this personal request about her own fate, okay, and only introduce the fate of the Jews at the very end. Yes, Mar?
I think this is a related question. But why does she say Haman's wicked desire on her? It's not. I mean, it's not really about her, right? It sounds like he has something. He
Right.
has it out for her, but it's not.
Right. Why frame? Yeah, I just want to see the Aramaic here. Just to get the Lo Tamid Re'us Haman. So Re'us is Ratzon Haman Rashia Mini. Yeah, don't let him carry out his Ratzon on me. Right. So yeah, Tamar.
But I just realized I thought that on me was modifying the Ratzon, but maybe it's just the action that his plan shouldn't occur to me.
Yeah, I think it is that. I still think it's a good question though, which is actually I'll append it to Ayala's question, which is why specify enacting Haman's will on me when it was really against everyone. In other words, if I were asking for this, and again, this is like what I was asking, I would ask, save the Jewish people, not prevent Haman from enacting his will on me. Oh, and at the end of my Tefilah, I'm going to say also have mercy on the Jewish people. That's just a weird way to say it. Yeah, Isaiah?
Well, can we go back to that paragraph?
Yeah.
So is this saying that she is asking for Haman's desire upon her, just as was done to Vashti? Is she worried that Haman is separately trying to do to her what was done to Vashti?
It's a good question. So let's
Or
ask
is
this.
she just referencing Haman's desire now as desire to kill the Jews, just as like.
It's a good question, right? So let's append this to the Vashti thing, which is, sorry, no, let's have this as own question. So what is the implication of just as was done to Vashti? Like the I guess the juxtaposition of this to the request about Achashverosh implies, don't let him kill me like he killed Vashti. Okay. Sorry. Achashverosh and Haman implies don't let him kill me like he killed Vashti, right? Because that was the implication is that Haman suggested to kill Vashti so that he can marry off his daughter. Okay, but the segue into the part about Haman's daughter, like, cast this in a weird light. Yeah, Isaiah.
Who is the uncircumcised one?
So when I first went through my chavrusa, we misread it as Haman. I'm pretty sure it's Achashverosh though. Right. I think he's called that a lot of times. And also there is a sort of parallel here. Don't deliver the intent of Achashverosh or let Haman fulfill his desire. Then she goes back and she places her actual request about what she wants with Achashverosh and then what she wants from Haman. Yeah.
So isn't she in the hand of Achashverosh? Like,
I think in terms of what she says later on, of that he should kill me for appearing before him without being called, and then also that's probably it. Yeah, that she should kill me. That he doesn't want him to kill him. Yeah, Moshe.
Ask this on that. What's the difference between you being given over to the hands of the Achashverosh and not having her be killed?
Right. Okay. Yeah. So why? Let's see. Let's say why does she have to mention separately? Given over into the hand of this uncircumcised one, especially since she specifies, what does she, don't let him kill me? Yeah, that he should not kill me.
Oh, another question?
Yeah.
What's the significance of mentioning from you this matter has come upon me to
Achashverosh? Right. Why? Yeah, let me put that in order here. So where did the mouse go? Okay. Why does she have to specify that this matter came upon her from Hashem? Yeah, Lauren?
This is more about like what it doesn't say. Like
Yeah.
I feel like I'm thinking about like Hannah's Tefilah or other people's Tefilah. There's more like praise of Hashem or commitment to keeping God's Torah or acknowledging like the truth of God and His word. Like you don't see any of that here. It just seems very personal. Like just don't kill me. It seems like that's what she's kind of like.
Yeah. Just to give
saying.
you a sneak peek of the second Targum, even though we're not going to do it. It does start off as a much more normal Tefilah. Targum Sheni. You are the God of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and the God of Binyamin, my father. It is not because I am worthy in your eyes that I come before this foolish king, but for the sake of your people, the house of Israel, that you should not be lost from the world, that they should not be lost from the world. For it was for the sake of Israel that you created the entire world. And if Israel were to be destroyed, who would declare before you, Kadosh, 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 3 times a day? Because obviously that's what you're going to choose if you're going to appeal to God. Just as you saved Hanani, Mishael, and Azariah from the fiery furnace, and Daniel from the lion's den, so save me from the hand of this foolish king, and grant me grace and favor in his eyes. So that's like a more traditional start of the Tefilah, praising God, invoking the Avos, etc. Right. So that's going to be the hardest question to answer, which is why does this Tefilah not have the elements we expect? For example, praising Hashem, mentioning his namesake, right? That's always a good card to pull. The Avos, etc. Yeah, that's a good question, but again, it's hard to answer that kind of question.
Av.
An Av, yes, correct. Yeah, right. That's true. Let's go with Ayala and then Isaiah.
So what exactly is the Yaakov Esav thing here? Why does she specifically draw on that?
Yeah. Okay. Why highlight Yaakov versus Esav here? Yeah. Lauren, is there your hand up from before, or you have a new question? I'm guessing it's from before. All right. So I feel like these are the main questions, unless we have some meta question on the entire thing. Oh, by the way, just basic question. Where does the Targum get that she davened? Where in the pasuk? Where is it? Let's go back to the pasuk here in 5:1. Yeah.
I'm so confused. How do they know what the lashon of the davening?
They don't. This is just like a midrash where the person who's writing it is just making. It's not based on. It's someone either trying to teach an idea, or in the same way as any midrash, trying to midrashim agada are not from Sinai by and large. There are a couple that maybe are passed down. So it's conjecture or it's trying to teach an idea. but there's no source for it.
Which pasuk is this on?
It's on pasuk Aleph, yeah.
So this isn't even a real thing. Like
No, this is not real Tefilah. This is like analyzing fan fiction, idea fan fiction, but like it's it's meaning they're not even claiming that they know that Esther did this.
They're just saying this is maybe what, or not even this is maybe what she did, but
This is what she could have done. This is if we were to speculate what she would have done, this is a possibility in terms of like we could picture her doing something like this.
Are there a million possibilities?
Yeah, right. There are, and that's why like there are three possibilities here. By the way, the reason why you know that this is not Masorah is if it were Masorah, there would be no machlokas, and these three midrashim have completely different tefillos. Yeah.
Can you just scroll for the Targum for a second?
For the what? The Targum?
Yeah, I just want to see one thing, and then I'll say that.
Oh, sorry. Targum. Yeah.
Where is the prayer going? So she's okay about this, and then it says Talis. So it
Yeah.
says she prayed right after she wore the Malchus.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that there's more about that, like about the Baptist and Malchus. She wore Malchus.
Yeah.
But I think maybe it comes from Talmud.
Yes, I think so also. Yeah, right. Yeah. So it says here, Vata'amod b'chatzar beis Melech. She stood, right?
What is it? It's like a pause frame. It's like a pausing the scene, and you just see her like standing there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But so the rule of midrashim in general is that you need to have some hook or anomaly in the wording of the pasuk, and you can say, well, what did you expect? She was sitting at the king's gate, like so. Ein amida ala Tefilah, like Tefilah, so that's where the hook is. Yeah. But you see what I'm saying about this is not. No one's claiming that they think she actually said this. Yeah.
Well, do they think she was actually Mispala?
I think that it is very. I think it's almost impossible to say she wasn't Mispala. Like it's hard for me to imagine that she would fast and not daven. Yeah.
It's also even more though, because you could go even more than the Talmud, because also why would it specify that she was facing the king's house? It's
right.
Maybe read that as an allusion to the Beit HaMikdash.
Yeah, and that's why I am inclined to think that it's just that the king's house in Yerushalayim is a reference to the Beit HaMikdash. Yeah, right. Okay. Being that there was a lot more facts than I thought. Okay, we have 20 minutes essentially. Okay. If anyone has any like grand theories, I'll hear them out. But if not, I'll share. Again, I don't have a fully worked out thing, but I do have some insights to share. Oh, let me go back to the Tefilah. Yeah. Hoodie?
Sorry, trying to figure out the emoji situation.
Yeah.
I'm just stuck on this idea of why you're so sure that the uncircumcised one does not mean Haman. I think that would actually answer a couple of the questions.
Yeah.
And it would make more sense if you're putting those two together, where she's like following that with a more specific understanding of what she's worried about with this person's plan. Kind of like explaining further, like, don't deliver me into his hands and fulfill his wicked desire me just as he did to Vashti. And it would maybe kind of flow more easily to say like, and then it follows up with some more specifics about how the story about his daughter kind of relates to why, what he has plans, why he has plans for, etc.
Yeah. So I like I said, my main argument is that that I think if this were referring to Haman, then it would say, do not deliver me into the hand of Haman, the uncircumcised one, as opposed to into the hand of this uncircumcised one, this meaning the person who I'm about to go enter into, and do not fulfill the wicked Haman's desire upon me, meaning these are two separate people. Also, secondary argument is there is this undercurrent in certain midrashim about we have to acknowledge this uncomfortable fact that Esther was sleeping with Achashverosh, and so I think referring to the uncircumcisedness of Achashverosh is a like referencing this unfortunate fate that she was already in.
Could it just be generally a bad habit, so like unrestricted?
That could be also right. Uncircumcised is a reference to like a hedonistic counter kedusha thing. Yeah.
Oh, I kept thinking of it as like a reference to him specifically, like not being Jewish, because like Haman was so focused on the Jews and getting rid of the Jews, and this was just like,
look, it's possible. It's possible. I part of the difficulty here is I don't really know the styles of the Targumim, so your guess is as good as mine. Yeah, Oren.
As a potential theory.
Yeah.
Maybe just in general, what she's doing is that she is basically trying to rectify in herself the midah that she had been accused of by Mordechai of failing. And
Interesting.
The two midah in particular are not recognizing hashgacha and of not viewing herself as being part of the Jewish
Ooh.
people.
Ooh, okay.
So that's why. So first, not recognizing hashgacha.
Yeah.
So that's why she brings up the fact, like, God, you're the one who put me here.
Yeah.
Like she bought into that.
Yeah.
Now. She recognizes that God put her there. Maybe also that's why she brings up stuff about Vashti and Haman's daughter. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
That part's still puzzling to me. And then the other thing that Mordechai kind of accuses her of, maybe a little bit more reading between the lines in there, though, is that she's viewing herself as being separate from everybody else.
Don't think you can escape the fate of
yeah. Also, that's actually explicit. Yeah. So that's why she brings up like all the genealogy stuff, Yaakov and the Esau, like that she is firmly rooted in the history here, in the genealogy here, and that she's not viewing herself as a part of that. She's rectifying her midah, basically.
I really like that interpretation. I like that interpretation better than what I'm going to say. What I'm going to say, I think fits, and is a good idea about Tefilah, but I think that as an interpretation of the Targum, that's a really, really good interpretation. And by the way, I mentioned I went to this rabbit hole with the 3 days of fasting and stuff. I mean, I didn't do that, but the topic of the 3 days of fasting, a lot of the Mefarshim say that the whole 3 days of fasting was calculated as specific tshuva for them and for her in preparation for taking this risk, so like, a lot of them say, for example, for the Jews there, that that they were partook of the feast of Achashverosh, so they had to refrain from eating and drinking, and then a lot of them tie her 3 days also into the thing. So, but that's a really, really good approach. I like that. That's my assumption from now. That's like, yeah.
Sorry, the 3 days, is it a known thing to fast for 3 days?
No, that was the question I took up. That that was the other topic. One of the other topics I was going to give shiur on. I have my own theory, which we have time about share why. It's a radical theory I've never heard about why it was 3 day fast, which I think fits. Okay, but let me share this idea again. This is not a new idea here, but basic idea in Tefilah. Okay, the inclination when you daven for something, especially for a pressing need, is to be entirely absorbed in your own framework and of your own desires. Okay, but the way that we know Tefilah works is, I always have to look this up to quote it, because I can never quote it by memory, because I always get it wrong. Who knows where I'm going? Ayala knows. 2:4. Aseh rutzono kirtzonacha kadei sheyaseh rutzonacha kirtzono. See, you can never say it by memory. And I always forget how to translate it in the way that doesn't lead to the question that people always ask when I quote it, which is enact his will, God's will, as if it is your will. Okay, meaning basically treat God's will as your will, like you're doing God's will as if it's your will, so that he will carry out your will as if it's his will. Okay, so this is the basis of my understanding of how Tefilah works in general, which is that God doesn't change. Okay, and the way that Tefilah works is you change yourself and align yourself with God's will. Okay, and this can occur on 2 levels. This can occur on the hashgacha flawless level, is that much of Tefilah occurs through changing your will to align with God's will in the way that the world naturally works. And we do hold also that there's hashgacha pratis, but even that is not based on changing God's will, that God has certain ways that he relates to, tzaddikim, to people who are close to him, and that they partake of a system, or they tap into a system that doesn't operate based on the natural law. Okay, fine. But either way, you're aligning yourself with God's will. Okay, so what is she doing here? So I think what this explains is she is framing herself basically as that you put me into this situation, and what I want you to do is to follow through with what your will is. Okay, so it'd be very easy for her to say, like, I'm worried about getting killed, or I want to save myself or whatever, But what she's doing is she's saying, first of all, the whole way that I got here was through hashgacha, okay? Was this bizarre thing happened. Okay, imagine the only example of royalty that, like, I know in recent times is like, Prince William and what's his wife's name? Kate, right? Middleton? right? So imagine like people knew that he was going to marry her because she was like a sweetheart or whatever, imagine like they're like starting to date, and then she has diarrhea every day for a year, and then he's like, no thanks. Okay, people would think that that's really weird. Okay, and according to Esther, at least, again, according to this, again, I don't know where he's getting this miracle of incontinence from, but like seems like Haman's plan would have worked if it weren't for this. Seems like Haman was already in Ahasuerus' good graces by suggesting the whole thing of killing Vashti, and that Haman's daughter would have gotten married to Ahasuerus, and then if Haman had decided to kill all the Jews, then we're finished because we have no one in the palace. And Mordecai, again, this is not like the Targum is making this up. Mordecai says, who knows if you attain royalty for a reason like this, So she's saying, you arrange things in such a way where I am here. And that does not even need to be Hashgacha Pratis. I mean, I think it was Hashgacha Pratis, but even if not, I mean, you accept that this is God's will. And the very basis of when you daven for something has to be acceptance of the current reality as God's will. And what people do is they try, usually unconsciously, they're almost like in denial of the fact that this is God's, that this is happening to them. But no, you have to say, no, it's God's will that I'm here. But now how can I utilize this to fulfill his will even more? So that's when she invokes Amalek. Okay, and I wrote an article in 5779, whenever that was. 6 years ago, yeah, right. So 6 years ago, yeah, I forgot what year it was. That goes into a whole thing. There's another whole Targum thing where the Targum in many places adds in this epic battle between Yaakov and Esav and Amalek and Shaul. Okay, and so we have to remember that like not so long ago, I mean, I guess centuries ago before this, Shaul failed to kill Amalek entirely. Okay, and Shaul was from Shevet Binyamin, and Agag he spared, and then Haman is the descendant of Agag, and now facing against Mordecai, the descendant of Shaul, or not descendant of Shaul, but of Shevet Binyamin, the same Shevet, and it's almost like a chance for a redo. Okay, and we know Milchama Hashem Amalek midor dor, that Hashem has a war against Amalek from every generation, and it's Hashem's will that Amalek be defeated. Okay, and that the Kiyat al Kes Yah Milchama Amalek midor dor, that the name of Hashem is not complete until Amalek is wiped out. So she's invoking about the past, that I am here as a result of your will, and the future that it is your will, or the present, it's your will that we destroy Amalek. And I want you to help me be the instrument of that. Okay. And that's what I think is here as well. When Ken and I were working on this today, and we were working on the question about why this hyper genealogy. So Ken said, this reminds me of Mesorah, right? Like going all the way back, So that reminded me of a Ralbag. My favorite interpretation of Amalek is the Ralbag's interpretation. So I'm just going to read you a snippet of this. In the end of Bashalach. Okay, so he explains why Amalek wanted to kill Bnei Israel on the way out of Mitzrayim. Okay, so again, this is part of a larger thing, but he says, Amalek, being from the seed of Esav, was aware of the matter of the blessing, namely that Yitzchak had blessed Yaakov, establishing that the offspring of Esav would be subservient to the offspring of Yaakov. Okay, so they had a Mesorah, okay, going back to Esav, which is not unreasonable. They were also aware of what Yitzchak had said to Esav in his blessing, that he would live by the sword, and that when he would attain dominion through the cosmic order, meaning like the Ralbag held by astrology, whatever, natural law, he could cast off the yoke of Yaakov's descendants from upon his neck. All right, so that's the deal. Basically, Yaakov is the main, inheritance, or what's the word I'm looking for? He's carrying on the legacy, right, of Yitzchak, and that all the prominence is his. And Esav is really subservient to him. But then when Esav has this bracha of living by the sword, and he can cast off Yaakov's yoke from his neck when Yaakov is not in the proper way of living. Okay. Thus, Amalek acted cunningly to wage war against Israel at a time when, according to the cosmic order, they were destined to prevail over Israel. Why? For the offspring of Esau were destined to succeed in matters of the sword and warfare, as Yitzchak had blessed them. Meanwhile, the spirit of Bnei Israel was lowly at that time. They were untrained in warfare, right? They just got a Mitzrayim after 210 years. And at least in Amalek's estimation, they were in the wilderness without bread and sustenance, weary and exhausted, right? They've been wandering around the desert. So Amalek's like, look, they're physically weak, they're psychologically weak. And then we know that they were spiritually weak, according to the Rabbah. There's a machlokas in Parsha Zachor, whether for lieu Elokim, that they didn't fear God, is referring to Amalek didn't fear God, or Bnei Israel didn't fear God. Okay, I think Rabbah learns that Bnei Israel didn't fear God. So objectively speaking, they were also not under the hashgacha as much. For this reason, Amalek hastens to act before Israel attained success in a way that would place the descendants of Esau in servitude to them. So in other words, Esau basically saw, so to me, this is the evil of Amalek, which is, it's one thing if you deny God, okay? But if you hold by God, and you hold that God blessed Yaakov and Esau, and you held that part of the bracha is when Yaakov is down and Esau is up, but the real way it's supposed to be is Yaakov is up. And despite all that knowledge, you try to kill Bnei Yaakov so that you, Bnei Esau, can be forever in prominence. You're knowingly trying to undo the Ratzon Hashem while affirming its reality. That's in chutzpah gadol mizah. I mean, more than the chutzpah, you know? So there is a Masorah, certainly from Esau to Amalek, and certainly from Amalek to Agag, right? Because that was another thing also, is that this is it was known that Agag was and Shaul was a war between Bnei Yaakov and that. And perhaps the Targum is recalling this idea of this Masorah of the enmity between Amalek and Shaul, and then Yaakov and Esau, and Esther is positioning herself as one of those positions. You know, of I am the scion of the house of Binyamin and the Bnei Yaakov, and I can enact Hashem's will to eradicate Amalek, which is in accordance with his will. Okay, so the move is when, if you want an effective tefillah, then align yourself with God's will and frame the tefillah in that way. Okay, and I think that it doesn't answer Lauren's question about why is the other stuff not in here, but it is putting herself in Hashem's framework here, you know? And the whole thing about Haman's daughter was just to explain, I don't know why she had to say this in the tefillah, but she is basically making an argument for, since she doesn't know that this is hashgacha, she is making an argument there saying, look, from my perspective, this was hashgacha, that you put me into this situation. So I want you to not, see, again, it's like, if we were in Esther's shoes, we say, Hashem, save me. Save me is a very narrow spotlight on what you have right now. She's expanding the spotlight and saying, Hashem, you set this in there's this thing set in motion with Yaakov and Esau, and then you set this thing in motion with me. Please follow through and let me be an instrument of your will in that way. Okay, and I'm going to give a real world example again, because I want this to be applicable. Real world example where I implemented this in my tefillos, which was the day was April 1st, 2020. Okay, we just found out that Shalhevet was going to close. Not an April Fool's joke. Okay, and this is after 10 years, and it was the height of COVID. Okay, people were dying on the streets in New York. Okay, we all knew people who died, and it was a very, very stressful time for everyone. Okay, and so when I found the school was going to close, all of the people in the school were immediately like looking for I got to get a job, right? And I too was like, I got to get a job, and I had all these anxieties about getting a new job in a high school in a pandemic. We didn't even know that Jewish schools were going to open. Teaching in a pandemic, it was a very stressful time. Okay, so my tefillos at first were asking Hashem to provide me with a good teaching job, in a high school, right? But then as the weeks went on, I started realizing, who am I to say that this is my role to be a high school teacher? That's true. That's what I did for 11 years prior to that, and that's what I want to do. But who's to say that that's actually what my role should be? So I switched my tefillah to, and I forgot the exact lashon I used. I think I switched it up a lot like I usually do, but it was something to the effect of, allow me to play whatever role you see fit, which maximizes the use of the strengths that you gave me. Okay, now that's a much broader type of tefillah where I'm acknowledging that whatever talents that I had for teaching, don't have to be used exclusively for that, but can be used in other ways. And I'm acknowledging that I don't know what role I'm going to have. Like, that's another mistake people make in Tefilah, is that they ask, I don't want to say it's a mistake definitively, but in my mind, there's always like this pendulum of like, do you make your tefillos specific? Or is that closing yourself off and presuming that you know what is best for you and how God's will is? And then you make them like general, like, would Moshe Rabbeinu ask for specific tefillos, specific bakashos? I think the answer is both. It depends on where you're at and how you relate to it. But I swung back and was like, if the role is not being a high school teacher, then so be it. And if it's not even being a teacher, then so be it. I want to be an instrument of your will. And what did happen is I ended up not becoming a high school teacher. I taught at YBT. I got a job at YBT and taught at YBT for 4 years, right? So and then I went back to high school, eventually. But so like So again, I'm not comparing myself to Esther, but I'm saying like in a lot of your tefillos, then it is very tempting to define the bakasha by your priorities. But if you open it up to God's priorities and open your mind to that, it'll actually enable you to also see opportunities that you wouldn't have necessarily taken, even if you don't get hashgacha pratis. Like, even in the hashgacha klalis world, you can do that. So that's, I think, the practical Tefilah takeaway from this. Yeah, okay. This is a good stopping point, but again, I just want to say I really like Oren's interpretation of the Targum better. I think if I were to say what idea is the Targum saying, I think it's Oren's idea, that she was framing it this way to do tshuva on her two shortcomings of not recognizing the hashgacha and attempting to distance herself from the Jewish people. But I think the takeaway, for Tefilah is a better takeaway, universalizing from my idea. They do go together. They do go together very nicely. Yeah. Okay, good. So maybe next year we'll tackle another Tefilah of Esther. Okay. But I think this will work out, I hope. Yeah. All right, good. All right. Have a happy Purim, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.